Another win for the Sabres, a pretty good stretch of 3 games. We'll talk about it coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can check us out on YouTube. You can watch the show along there. Like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Also, be sure to check us out in our Locked On Sabres text line. Become a sortie. The link for that, joinsubtext.com. Join Subtext, subtext.com/Locked On Sabres, where you can sign up there, where you'll get all your updates. You'll get, as soon as we drop a show, you'll find out there. We have some banter back and forth during the games. Last night, some of that was reviewing a beef on Wex stinger that I had in the arena. And I might have to say, wasn't feeling the dog of the day. This is too much going on. It was wrapped in bacon. There were pinto beans, pico de gallo. There was just a lot going on with the hot dog for the Arizona Coyotes, the Arizona-themed hot dog for the Sabre game. Just a lot going on. Wasn't feeling it, even to try. Maybe if I was in a different mind space, I would have done it. But let me know if you had it and it was good. Maybe I missed out. But we had a little back and forth on that front. We talked some Sabres in terms of Eric Robinson in his game, and we'll talk more about him coming up in a little bit. Also, what's coming up? We've got Sabres After Dark from here on out through the rest of the week, which will be interesting. But we'll talk plenty about this 3-game stretch that ends here against the Arizona Coyotes with a 5-2 win, Buffalo over Arizona. 5 of a possible 6 points. And what that means for the standings, we can start there, is the Sabres are only 4 points out of a playoff spot, and there are 2 massive buts, as there will be with any standings conversation at the beginning of the year. The Sabres have played 4 more games than Washington, who's in that final spot. They've played 2 more games than Detroit, who they are 5 points back of, who is in the top wild card spot. So they have work to do, of course, and not only the games played part of it and the being points behind part of it, but they also still trail Montreal, Carolina, New Jersey, and Tampa that are all sandwiched in the middle of the playoff teams and the Sabres. All in all, what we've said for weeks is still true. They need to put together a win streak to be able to make up some ground, get back into this thing in a real way. 5 out of 6 points, though, not too shabby. It very easily could have been 6 out of 6. If Eric Robinson doesn't take a major penalty against the Canadiens, they probably have 6 out of 6 points. If Dahlin doesn't hit a post with 3 minutes to go against Montreal, and it instead just goes a little bit to the right, then they have 6 out of 6 points, and we are talking about that win streak. But you had to be better than that. You had to beat that Canadiens team. You had to find a way to score more than 2 goals with 48 shots on goal. They still got a point in the shootout. 5 out of 6. This Coyotes game, they played as well as they did in the previous 2. And now you kind of group them together. Look at the style of play that they've played leading into this Coyotes game. It was more offensive. They were generating more shots. They had 32 shots on goal against Boston. They had 48 shots on goal against the Montreal Canadiens, and then in this Arizona game, 38. Excuse me, I think it was 35 for Boston. So 35, then 48, then 38 that they've generated in these 3 games. So a more offensive style, and they did a pretty good job of finishing in this game, but that was thanks to one line in particular, and we'll talk a little bit about the Robinson Okposo Krebs line in a bit. But overall, a good game. They dominated possession. They dominated at 5-on-5 in this game. I mentioned that they outshot Arizona 38 to, what did Arizona end up with in this game? Arizona ended up with 23. Shot attempts, 54 for Buffalo, 35 for Arizona at 5-on-5. Scoring chances at 5-on-5 was the biggest gap. 32 for the Sabres to 12 for Arizona. High danger chances were 11 for Buffalo, 4 for the Coyotes. They were far and away the better team. Expected goals in this game at 5-on-5, 3.3 for Buffalo, 0.9 for Arizona. It actually is one of, in terms of, in fact, I probably could tell you, does Natural Stat Trick break this down by category? I think they might. I might want to guess it's the Sabres' best game in terms of expected goals all season. It is 77% of the expected goals at 5-on-5 in this game were the Sabres. So by the numbers, this is the most they've outplayed a team in a single game all season. It was funny because through the first 30 minutes of game action, I didn't really feel like the Sabres were doing a lot. There wasn't a lot happening, but it was a constant pressure that they were supplying on Arizona. We finally, by the way, hit on a parlay. I should have led with that. We finally did it. We got it going. I went a little bit lower in terms of the odds just to hit on something, and we did. We hit on the over 6.5 goals in this one. We needed that empty netter at the end. Thank you, Rasmus Dahlin, for that. We needed JJ Peterka over 3 shots on goal. He got 4. He is money on that bet this season because all he does is turn and shoot. He did score again in this game. Mr. Peterka did, as he continues to have a breakout season. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. 12 goals on the year for him. And we got Sabres minus 1.5. That one looked pretty good through a big chunk of today's game. So an overall great game by the Buffalo Sabres. Devon Levi, another strong performance for him. We kind of went through it. He wasn't tested all that much, 23 shots against, but he did make a couple of big saves in this one. And again, if you're looking at what was expected to go in against him in this game, it was 0.9 at 5-on-5. All situations, the Coyotes' expected goals, if you're going to include power play in this one, was 1.3. So, well, actually, Levi, by the numbers, let in, 0.7 goals above what it was expected. But I thought overall a really solid performance from him. He did nothing to think he should go down to Rochester again. That conversation, I think, is long gone. Luukkonen was the backup in this game. So, to me, if you get UPL in the next one and he looks strong, I just think you're wasting time the more every day that you have Eric Comrie on this roster. More and more, the two kids, Levi and UPL, are showing that they're capable of leading this team in goal. And I thought this game against Arizona, helped solidify that a little bit. At the very least, it wasn't Levi collapsing, even if you don't want to say he was unbelievable and that the numbers would show that maybe he should have been a little better. Doesn't matter. He was solid, I thought, for sure. Points in this game. We mentioned Peterka scored a goal. Peyton Krebs scored a goal. Okposo gets a goal. Eric Robinson gets a goal. I want to break down that line separately. So, looking at Dahlin as well gets a goal and an assist. Connor Clifton, 2 more points. He's had a solid stretch of days here. The Sabres did not have Matthias Samuelsson in the lineup. He ended up not playing. And I do want to give another shout out. Again, I do plan on focusing on this more so for a whole segment soon. But Henry Jokiharju, I thought, was really solid again. I had a seat in the arena behind the Sabres net. Or it was where they're shooting twice. So I guess in the second period would have been the period where I really got to see Jokiharju and Dahlin work together. And I was right over top of it and perfect view for it. And there were a lot of little plays I noticed Jokiharju make where he threw off a forechecker thinking he was going to go one way and then he turned the other on a dime and created all this time and space for him to make the right play. And he did that several times. Just looked really smooth to me. The player that I saw that I was excited about when the Sabres first brought him in from Chicago. I mean, is that 4 years ago now? And I saw a lot of signs of a guy that could be a top 4 defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres. That had almost completely gone away to a point where he was a bottom pair guy at best, it seemed, coming into certain seasons. Whereas to now, I'm good with him being top 4. I think he's been playing really well. I think it would be crazy to pull him out as a healthy scratch again, which had happened a couple of times. In the first 23 games of the year, Jokiharju had only played more than 20 minutes 2 times. He's done it 4 times in his last 5 games. So the usage is starting to go up as they've entrusted him to play on that top pair and started to give him a little bit of power play opportunity as well. So shout out Jokiharju. Another good game, I thought, on his front. And I want to break him down a little bit further in depth coming up on a future show. In terms of the advanced stats in this one, Peterka was their number one player at expected goals for at 89%. Dylan Cousins, 82%. The guy still can't buy a goal. The Dylan Cousins dam is built, and it is not falling. It just will not go down. But he continues to generate chances, and I got to think that's going to happen sometime soon. So overall, an incredible game from the Sabres, and we'll talk about the number one reason they played so well, I thought, in this game, and were able to win by 3 goals. That was the Krebs, Okposo, Robinson line. We'll talk about it when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We also have some World Junior updates, a couple others for you coming up on the show. So stay tuned for that. Here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, we are presented by Sleeper. The fantasy football season is winding down, but that's no reason to take Sleeper and put it, on a further page down on your phone or even uninstall it until next football season. You got plenty of opportunities to win big this hockey season. You could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper, our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you got to do, pick from players like Cousins and Power and Thompson and Krebs, Middlestad, whoever you want, and whether they'll record more or less than their sleeper projection for goals, assists, shots, saves, plus, minus, or more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. 5-2 Sabres over the Arizona Coyotes in this one. Reminder, check us out on our Locked On Sabres text line join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. We also want to remind you that Locked On's launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for your 24/7. Local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Sneaky stars of this game. You got to just give it 1, 2, 3 to the best line the Sabres had on the night. And that is going to go to Peyton Krebs, Eric Robinson, and Kyle Okposo. And hey, here I got it over on the bar here. Here's to you, Mr. Robinson, because he was the number one star in this game, as voted on by the Buffalo media. Eric Robinson, a goal and 2 assists. Now, he had looked really strong in his first game against Boston. He got tossed in his second game against Montreal, which really hurt the Sabres. And then in this game, number 3, he was great. He looked fast, which to me is a bit of a surprise because, I didn't think he really looked all that fleet of foot in the first couple of games. Energy is there, but I'm not sure about skating ability. But he did have that in this game for sure. So as we continue to learn about him, maybe that is something that will remain. He crashed the net on his goal. He crashed the net to set up a Kyle Okposo on his goal to get to the net. That was more of a partial breakaway. He was really strong. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And hey, they already won the trade. The odds of Columbus getting a player that will score an NHL goal with that conditional 7th round pick, if they even get the pick, the odds of that guy scoring a goal are really, really low. Like, it's probably not going to happen. So at this point, again, you kind of got the guy for free, and he's already made a little bit of an impact. So that's already a good move. It's kind of still a nothing move because they didn't have to give anything up, and I don't think he means anything to their team long term. I would still project that when they get healthy, he's not a part of the lineup. But for now, it does kind of look like a little bit of the right decision given in hindsight because of the size that they're missing in the lineup. Jordan Greenway still out. Alex Tuch out. In this game, you had Matthias Samuelsson out. I know that's the blue line. They've been missing some bodies. Of course, Gergenson's in the tops in the bottom 6 being out is the guy that he's really replacing. Robinson's come in. He's filled in for that physicality, for that size. And with Brett Murray in the lineup too, like, you give the Sabres some credit. They looked bigger because they were bigger. They looked a little bit tougher to play against in the offensive zone, take guys off the puck. They had a problem getting Robinson, the Coyotes did, out from in front of the net. And if he could, listen, I'm not betting on him making an impact like that every night, of course, and would still think that when everyone's healthy, he's not in. But if he plays like that every night, he should be in. No doubt about it. He should be in the top 4 lines if he plays like that every night. So we'll see how it goes going forward, but all credit to him on this game, a goal and 2 assists. Remember, he scored 12 goals last year. So, the goal part of it could be something there where he chips in here and there. And Peyton Krebs, a nice one-timer there. Okposo kind of made that play happen. Okposo, by the way, is also worth pointing out here and giving a shout out to. I believe he was the game's number 2 star. He was with a goal and 2 assists himself. Okposo has 5 goals in his last 10 games, and that's exactly what they need from him. He has looked so old at times and has looked like he should not be in the NHL anymore. But if he's going to continue to put the puck in the back of the net, and he could give you a little bit on the penalty kill while playing not many minutes, okay, then he's giving you enough value to stay in the lineup. 5 goals in his last 10, goals in back-to-back games, Montreal and Arizona. And Montreal had a couple more chances. So hope that continues. He hadn't scored at all in the first 19 games of the year, but, if he could get somewhere in the double digits, that would really be helpful for the Sabres, especially with some of these injuries they've had to deal with up front. And then Krebs with a one-timer goal. I keep wanting more offensively from him, and when he gets a chance like that, he's got to be able to bury it. He can't just be a pass-first guy if he's going to be someone with any sort of offensive ceiling. But he did. He buried it past Karel Vejmelka, who not a very good goaltender this year at all. But that's not to take credit away from Krebs. Krebs did well. That line overall, really, it was their 3rd line in terms of ice time. Don't call it their 4th line, because in this game, it was their 3rd in terms of ice time. The 4th line was definitely the Brett Murray, Tyson Jost, Victor Olofsson line. So going forward, we'll see if Jack Quinn's back at some point, Greenway and Tuck, but I think you got to keep Krebs, Robinson, and Okposo together for the next couple of games when the Sabres get some stiffer competition. And that is where we'll turn our attention next, along with some quick World Junior updates that affect the Sabres. Sabres After Dark on the way. I've been saying they need to put a win streak together. It's going to be a tough ask. And we'll tell you why when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, be sure to check us out on our text line, joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres if you want to get involved with the show. What was I looking at on our text line recently? A couple of texts that I saw, some Ryan Johnson shout outs. The Sabres had a big hit last night. That sandwich looked awesome with the beef on weck. How about that sandwich with Okposo and Robinson? They had a big hit in the second period where that happened, and they're referencing the beef on weck sandwich that I referenced earlier. You got to pick your spots with the arena food this year. I should have, next time the Sabres have like a bye week, I'm going to do a top 5 arena food this year, because there is bad still, but there is some good as well. And I definitely experienced some good last night. Another texter last night during the game asked about Robinson in the lineup and what will they do when Zemgus Girgensons returns to the lineup. I don't know if that's a valid question right now, because I just don't know when Zemgus is coming back. It sounds like this could be long-term for him. So I don't think that means the season, but it's not a problem that's coming up. We'll see where Robinson's at. It's just too early to know, because Robinson might be 10, 20 games into his Sabre career before we really have to ask that question. I think it's too early after 3, because right now, if you told me Zemgus is back healthy today, you'd keep Robinson in the lineup. But is that still going to be the answer in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or however it might take Zemgus to get back? It's not a bad question. It's just, I think it's way too early to tell, because we have a lot of information to be had about Eric Robinson and his role in this lineup. Another one I wanted to read. If Cousins starts scoring, they might turn into a real good team. Cousins is the guy. Cousins is the guy that they just need to get the goals from, and it's still not happening. If they want to win this week, they're going to need Cousins to step up. And that's because at Colorado, at Vegas, at Arizona are the Sabres' next 3 games. Wednesday night at Colorado, Friday night at Vegas, and then the second of a back-to-back at Arizona Saturday, 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So we get Sabres after dark for the first time this year in these 3 games. And they just beat Arizona, and Arizona's in a playoff spot, so that's not a bad team. But we just saw that they're capable of not only beating the Coyotes, but dominating the Coyotes. Can they do what they've been doing at times this year in these next 2? They need to put some wins together, string some wins together. And they have shown they're capable of beating great teams. They've been doing it all year. They beat the Bruins on Thursday. They beat the Rangers a couple of Mondays ago. They beat the Leafs in Toronto. They beat the Avalanche on home ice. They've been able to beat the best of the best. Well, they're going to have to do it here, and they're going to have to do it on the road, but they need to because they can't continue to lose ground in this conference. And if they're able to get, what would you take? The right answer, given the strength of opponent, might be I'd take 4 of a possible 6, right? Would you take 4 of 6? I think you'd have to say yes in this 3-game road trip, Colorado, Vegas, and Arizona. But that would assume a win over Arizona. Could they do better? Sure, they could. Just don't collapse, right? Don't go out west and get 0. Don't go out west and get 1 or 2. Like, they got to get 3, I guess. Okay, we can continue. We cannot be upset if they have 3. But I feel like 4 is the lowest amount that you should be sign up on the dotted line for. The Golden Knights, the Avalanche are the 2 real challenges here. If you look out in the West, we'll talk more about Colorado on tomorrow's show. They are number 1 in the Central Division with 36 points, 17-9-2, and a plus 13 goal differential. Vegas is a machine right now. They are number 1, not just in their division. They are number 1 in the National Hockey League by 4 points with 43. They are far and away the best team right now. A plus 31 goal differential, 19-5-5. They've won 3 in a row. That's going to be the stiffest challenge that the Sabres are going to see coming on Friday. But first, Colorado, we'll talk about that game tomorrow. But those are 2 really hard games. If they're able to pull off 2, whether that's 2 overtime losses or a 1 win and 1 regulation loss, I don't care. But get 2 against one of those 2 points of those 2 games, and then win in Arizona. And I think you can be satisfied with the upcoming road trip. And as I mentioned, hey, they got to have some of their top players producing. The secondary scoring is nice. They have to merge that with the top 6 producing as well if they're going to beat teams this good. And in terms of goalie, I think you got to go Levi. I think you got to do it. Eric Comrie should not see the net, in my opinion, on this road trip. Luukkonen's played well against Colorado. He should go on Wednesday. I think Levi back on Friday, and then Luukkonen again on Saturday. I think you got to do it. You got to ride your hot hands, and right now it's the 2 young guys. World Junior news for the Sabres today, as there was really no other Sabres-related news. We've got World Junior news, though. That's upcoming. Camps are opening up this week, and the tournament's a couple weeks away. 2 weeks from today, actually. Jiri Kulich will go to the World Juniors for the 3rd time. That's kind of rare, right? Like, you got to have a prospect good enough to make his team early. And usually those guys have to play for nations that don't have deep prospect pools. And Czechia, is kind of that situation. So Kulich will go for the 3rd time in Rochester. If he had been with the Sabres, I'm sure he wouldn't have gone, but he will be there. And I'd expect him to be the tournament's best player. He's going to be like the oldest player there, one of the oldest players there, and he's already been dominant. So with another year, he's going to terrorize, some of those kids there, I think. So Kulich going for Czechia. Savoy is not official, but Matthew Savoy is expected to go for Team Canada, and there's no reason, to not have him in the lineup, of course, because the Sabres already sent him to juniors. I don't expect Zach Benson to be alone there. I know Team Canada wants him, but the Sabres can't afford to lose him. There's no argument for the Sabres. You keep Zach Benson. You got to have him here. He's one of your 6 best forwards easily right now. The other guy to update you on, player we don't reference often. Maybe we all reference him like once or twice a year on this show. 2nd round pick from 2022, goaltender Topias Leinonen for Finland. will not play for Finland. He was not chosen to the team. He's healthy now, but he's had a lot of injury problems since the Sabres drafted him. In fact, the Sabres made him the first goalie selected in the 2022 NHL draft to kind of try to replenish their prospect pool behind Luukkonen and Levi, but nothing has really happened there at all. He's kind of a lost prospect at this moment. It's goaltender. It's only a year and a half in, so you don't want to. You don't want to write him off. Anything could happen with goalies, but nothing's really going well there. And this is kind of another. Oh man, that's really not going well. When you saw, I saw Lance Lysowski, the first one that tweeted it, that he was not selected to Team Finland. You're 22 years old, or not 22 years old. You're a 20-year-old goaltender, 19-year-old goaltender. You were the first goalie picked in your draft class, and you can't even you can't even be the third string goalie on your World Junior team. That's pretty problematic. So wouldn't bet on that guy anytime going forward. Scott Ratzlaff, who actually I believe is also a potential selection for Team Canada, 5th round pick of the Sabres in 2023. He has passed Leinonen as their number one goalie prospect that's not currently in the organization. If goalie prospects, if you want to count Levi and Luukkonen as those are your 1-2. And your third guy right now isn't the guy they drafted in the 2nd round. It's the guy they just drafted in the 5th round in Scott Ratzlaff. So quick word on that. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Tomorrow we'll preview Sabres and Avalanche. We'll talk to you then here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Reminder once again, don't just check out us if you're interested in all the day's news, because we've got the Sabres covered here. But Locked On Sports Today has got you covered for your 24/7, first ever national sports 24 streaming channel on YouTube, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.